And today I'm going to talk to you about connecting with God in creation. And my pastor at Mercy Culture Church talks about how senior pastors, lead pastors, even youth pastors have made mistakes of trying to get everybody to connect with God the same exact way that we do. And what it does is it leaves a people discouraged instead of encouraged. It leaves a people, man, I don't feel like I can connect with God. They feel like they can't break through and get into his presence because God didn't make them the same way that he made the senior pastor. And so today I came here to explain one of the ways that I best connect with God. Connecting with God in creation is feeling his presence, hearing his voice, or being moved to worship by simply being in his creation. For those of you who connect with God in creation, you're basically a redneck. You like to hunt, you like to fish, you like to go outside, you like to hike, you like to be in the woods. My friend Gonzalo is here this morning, and Gonzalo is an avid fly fisherman, hunter, and basically every time we cross paths, we're talking about hunting, we're talking about fishing. Now there's multiple ways because my friend Ryan here in the front row also connects with God in creation, and he connects in a different way. And today, like I said, I want to talk to you about how I best connect with God in creation. So I'm from the Pacific Northwest, originally from Washington State, where we have real mountains. And I love it. Beautiful mountains, beautiful streams, clear water. It's an absolute gorgeous place to live. I actually grew up right next to Mount St. Helens. And so my grandparents, Mount St. Helens blew up, erupted before I was born. But my grandparents who raised me actually went up on the hill in my hometown and watched the mountain erupt. Like this was like the beauty of the area that I lived in. And every year, we would go to this place in the middle of nowhere, Idaho, on a fly fishing trip. I learned how to fly fish when I was in 7th grade. And starting in 7th grade, we'd go to this middle of nowhere, Idaho place. Now for me, I absolutely love it. My wife, when she finds out that she doesn't have cell service, she's like, I'm out. I don't want anything to do with that. But I love going here. It's so remote that the closest town is 30 miles away on a gravel road. And that town only has 400 people. You got to drive another couple hours outside. I see like a lot of guys being like, yeah, right now, like this is it. And it was a fly fishing trip that we would go on every year. It was it's still one of my favorite places to go. In fact, I actually am going up there again in July. And I didn't become a Christian until I was 16 years old. And so I grew up going to this place, not necessarily encountering God because I didn't know God yet. But I became a Christian when I was 16 years old. One of my best friends invited me to church and led me to the Lord. And there was this church girl. Yeah, I got some giggles. There was this church girl. And I'm brand new saved, brand new Christian, trying to fall in love with the Lord. And there was this cute girl that I was like, man, she's it. It's like as soon as you're a Christian, you and you're single, you look at any woman and like with a heartbeat, and you're like, that's it. They're the one. And I'm like, as a young, dumb, immature 16-year-old, I'm thinking that I'm madly in love, and I have some mentors and pastors in my life, and they're like, settle down, Sean. You're 16. You don't even have your license yet. Relax. And thinking that I'm in love, one of my pastors, who's a spiritual father in my life, started talking to me about, hey, this doesn't seem healthy by how much you're hanging out and how much she's taking your attention away from God. I've been in youth ministry since I was 18 years old. I'm 31 now. I have a lot of these conversations with young people. And this spiritual father, pastor of mine, was having this conversation with me. He says, Sean, I think you need to completely cut off the relationship. And in my young 16-year-old heart, I feel broken. I feel discouraged. But I knew that he was right. And so I call her up and I say, we're over. She's like, what? What are you talking about? We're over. My pastor said so. Hang up the phone. So you can tell I wasn't the most mature person in the joint, but I just wanted to obey. I wanted to fall in love with God. And so I remember hanging up the phone, crying, and calling my pastor. I did it. It's over. My life is over. How many young people have you pastored where they feel like their life is over as soon as they break up with their boyfriend or girlfriend? Your life has just started, actually. And I remember him laughing, but yet so counseling me through it. And I remember this was in the middle of summer, and the next week I was gonna go on this fishing trip. Now, mind you, I've barely encountered God so far. I've only been a Christian for just a few months. And I knew that there was something on this trip where I just had this holy expectation where I knew I could encounter God. My heart was in a tender spot. I felt humiliated in my young, immature emotions. And I went to Idaho, and I absolutely love fishing. Like, I'm a little competitive too. So when other people are like, hey, I caught this 19-inch trout, I'm always like, well, mine was 19 and a half inches, right? I'm always trying to catch the most fish, trying to catch the biggest fish. But that time I didn't really care because I came there for an encounter. And I went in, we set up camp, and as soon as we set up camp, my grandpa, our family friend, and my brother, they went out to the river, and they said, Sean, are you coming? I said, no, I just want to hang back. And they thought that was weird, but they didn't really care, so they went on, and I started a fire right in our campground, and I said, Lord, I need you to speak to me right now. So again, broken, tender, felt a little discouraged and humiliated. And I'm at the fire. I've never heard the voice of God before, and I look down into the fire pit, and I see the letter M in the fire. And I thought that was strange. It was imprinted in one of the ashes. And I'm like, that's not supposed to be there. And I hear in my spirit the Lord say, turn to the book of Matthew. And again, I've never heard the voice of God, but it felt so prominent that I felt like I had to do it. So I don't even know where the book of Matthew is. So I'm like skimming through my Bible, trying to figure out where it's at. And as soon as I turned to the book of Matthew, the very first page that I turned to is Matthew chapter 25, verse 21. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. I knew that as soon as the scripture popped out at me, that it was the Lord saying, Sean, I'm really proud of you. And I remember at the fire just weeping before the Lord, because now it looks silly as a 31-year-old who's been married for 9.5 years, my beautiful wife on the front row, been married and have 3 kids and another one on the way. But it was one of these first encounter moments. The first time I ever encountered the Lord was actually not in a church, but it was actually outside in his creation. It was my first time connecting with God outside of a church. Was in the middle of nowhere, Idaho, with the trees and the mountains and the river, and just admiring the beauty of God. See, it became easy to admire the beauty of God in the beauty of his creation. See, this trip wasn't about fishing anymore. It was about connecting with him. The issue is, we live in a culture that admires the beauty of creation, but doesn't recognize the beauty of the creator. See, I pulled up right in your parking lot and you guys have these wildflowers out there. And I'm like, let's just do church outside. Because what it does is the beauty of even a single flower will actually point you to the beauty of the one who created that flower. See, in Romans chapter 1, verse 19, it says, for what can be known about God is plain to them, but God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so they are without excuse. What Paul is saying here is that because of the beauty of his creation, you are without excuse to believe in God. Because when you look at his nature, when you look at his creation, you have to see God in it. Because God is written all over those wildflowers right next to your parking lot. God is written all over the Nolan River right down the road. God is everywhere in creation. We don't have excuse not to worship him when we see it. We are without excuse. Creation points to the creator. See, in this day, there was this worship of idols, which is a false god. People would make them in their own image. And what I believe, in my opinion, the worship of idol is actually the misappropriation of beauty. It's misappropriating your awe and wonder. You're more in awe with the wildflower than the God who created the wildflower. You're more in awe with the mountain or the stream than the God who created those things. It's interesting in our culture how much we give our attention, our awe, wonder, and fascination to things that are created or things that we've made in our own hands rather than the one who made them. See, many cultures around the world, even here in America, they actually worship nature. They claim that even when they begin to follow Jesus, that they don't want to give up this part of their culture. I was just watching a documentary of a Native American reservation, and they're praying to the river. They're praying to the mountain. They're praying to their food. They're praying to these animals, to these things, and they're praying to the wrong thing. And then they're mad when Christians come in and tell them that's wrong, because what they say is, that's my culture. Can I tell you, I came from a culture of gossip, slander, alcoholism, and lust, and God asked me to give up my culture. So we could say, Sean, you're being offensive right now. No, what I'm telling you is that culture does not supersede God's commandments. No matter what culture you're in. Now, if somebody walks in and CNN walks in, they're gonna say, man, you got a bigot, you got a racist here at Thread Church. No, well, you got a God-fearing man at Thread Church. You have someone who just wants to see Jesus in everything, and I'll give up anything and everything just to appropriately worship him. We live in a culture that thinks, how can I worship God and still get away with these things? Instead of, God, what can I give up for you because you're my all in all? Culture cannot supersede commandments. It's an issue when you justify your disobedience because you say it's your culture. See, here's the thing. I love different cultures. I love the beauty of different cultures. I love the beauty of the Native American culture, of the African American culture, of the African culture. I love understanding and actually even learning about different cultures, because what it does is it points me to the Creator. It's interesting how no matter what culture, even in their worship of false idols, they're still trying to find a God. But what happens is like I already said, is they look to the created thing as their God instead of the one who created everything. Your culture isn't that beautiful. God is beautiful. See, we have companies like Patagonia, REI, and North Face that make money off of helping people admire the beauty of creation while promoting a godless and sinful, evil lifestyle. That's what they do. Is they're here to promote, get outside, go explore, look at the beauty of creation. Never pointing to the Creator, but pointing people back to their own product, back to their sinful and godless lifestyles while promoting the LGBTQ agenda and other things that actually destroy families and destroy people's lives. Creation has become their only source of beauty. See, here's the thing, men in this place, when you walk by a beautiful woman, it shouldn't cause you to lust. It should cause you to thank the Creator, the most beautiful one. When you look by and you go to the gym and you see the strength of a man, it should actually point you to the strength of God instead of causing envy and jealousy. No matter what you look at, it should point you to Jesus. In my opinion, I believe that lust is just misappropriated beauty. Men, you're quiet in this place because you know how to behold beauty. When you scroll through Instagram and you see that picture that you probably shouldn't be staring at very long, you know how to behold beauty then. Will you really behold the beauty of God? See, we're as a culture, we're missing it. Because we find beauty in the materialistic and in the flesh and in the things of the surface level. We don't really look deeper into things and see the Jesus in them. So I've had this thing where, like, if I see a woman who is dressed provocatively, and if they're coming and talking to me, what I do is I ask, Holy Spirit, help me see them the way that you see them. Father, help me see them as a daughter. And then what I do is I don't actually look at the beauty on the external, but I look at the internal potential for beauty. But instead, in our flesh, we just look at the external and we then begin to worship idols. See, our Creator is beautiful. I love it. One of your apostolic elders, Russell Johnson, I love this quote that he says, God isn't useful, he's beautiful. Men in this place, I want you to understand, you being a man doesn't mean you can't call things beautiful. It doesn't mean you can't adore your creator as a beautiful one. In fact, in the Bible, you're called a bride. Now, women, you're sons. So, this isn't cultural perversion. Men in this place, you got to be okay with being a bride to the bridegroom. It doesn't take away your manhood. It doesn't take away your ego. In fact, it adds to the call of God and the identity of who you really are. See, anything that we see in creation should actually lead us to awe and wonder of the Creator. My friend was, like I said, I got saved when I was 16 years old, and my friend was witnessing to me, telling me about Jesus, and I believe I was 15, 16 years old, and he'd be like, hey, Sean, you want to come to youth group? I'd be like, no, not at all, actually. And he asked me so much. He was the guy that wore like the fake like Reese's that said Jesus on it shirt. Like his hat said Jesus freak, and he was. And he's asking me every week, man, you will come to church with me. You want to come to church with me? And I told him no, but then I couldn't, like, I felt bad. And so I just started lying to him, like, dude, I got homework. Your boy never did homework. So, and he's like, hey, I live with my grandparents. My grandparents won't let me go. And so I lied to him for a year. And then this 2-month period, he kind of gets me hooked on just the curiosity of maybe there is a Jesus, maybe this God thing is real. And I start reading the Bible, and I see Jesus walking on water. I see blind eyes open. I see crazy miracles. And I actually become an atheist for 2 months because I said, that doesn't happen. I've never seen that. And I didn't tell him because I was scared of what he would think, that I'm a complete atheist for these 2 months. In that, I actually am planning, this is my junior year of high school, I'm actually planning on how to run away and just go live off the land in Alaska, trying to connect with God in creation. And my friend Gonzalo's like, yeah, let's do that. We can't do that, Gonzalo. We got a family. We can't do that. And I didn't believe in God. Well, my friend Jordan, he tells me this story of how his torn ACL gets miraculously healed. And I'm like, and I really believe him. I knew he's never lied to me before. So I'm one step closer. But you know what tipped me over the edge to believing in God? Was this one thought of how complex a single blade of grass is. I think, man, Sean, you're kind of a nerd. Well, maybe. But if you think about it, if you really look at just the complex nature of just a single blade of grass, the cellular structure, how does it get water? The sun, photosynthesis, all of that. I wasn't crazy into science, but that one thought tipped me over the edge into believing in Jesus, which is where you go back to Romans 1 that says, when you look at creation, you're without excuse. See, atheism actually takes more faith than Christianity does. You look at it, you're like, wait a minute, how do you believe that? Just go outside for 2 seconds and tell me you're an atheist when you really look at things. Yeah, you're right. Those wildflowers over there, that was an accident. That doesn't make any sense. Creation actually got me saved. One single blade of grass, the thought of it. I remember even picking one in my yard being like, this thing is kind of wild. Thinking he must be real. There must actually be a creator. Can I give you guys some practical advice? So when you guys go outside, whether you're an outdoorsman like me, or you're like Ryan who likes perfect lawns, no matter what, when you go outside, look for God in his creation. Because all of you are going to be looking at those wildflowers now that I talked about it. When you smell the air and the fresh air, think, where's Jesus? Because he's everywhere, and actually the point of creation is that everything points back to him. And when you hear the songs of a songbird, it actually is worship unto the Creator. That everything points back to him. That just as healings and signs and wonders are actually what they are, is they're meant to point back to Jesus, point to him, that's actually what creation is, because creation is a miracle in itself. So it all points back to Jesus. So when you're outside, Find him in his creation. Another piece of advice is talk to your kids about God and creation. It's one of the easiest ways to help your kids understand God. My in-laws have a few acres in Weatherford, Texas, and I take them out there. We're riding quads, and I just brought my 3-year-old son out there, and I said, man, do you see these trees? And I'm explaining it to him, and he's like, yeah. I was like, who made those? He's like, God did. Oh, okay, he's preaching right now. And I bring him to the creek that's on the property, and I'm like, who made that water? Who makes water? Where does water bubble up from? He said, God made it. God made the water. But this is 3 years old. And it's funny because I showed him where I shot a deer on that property, and I was like, man, God made the deer. I'm like, this is actually where I got to shoot one. I actually connect with God by killing his creation. and I'm there, and I'm telling him about the deer, and I'm like, who made the deer? He's like, Dad did. I'm like, no, God, no. God made the deer. It's a great way to teach your kids to understand how God is a creator and that how he creates everything. Another piece of advice is invite God into your hobbies and your desires. That if you like to fish, if you like to hunt, even basic things like mowing the lawn, just being outside, invite God into every piece of it. Even outside of creation, the things that you enjoy, God wants to enjoy with you. My kids love to wrestle me. And I'm not like, we got to be holy right now. No, they invite their dad into it. Invite the Father into the things that are outside, into the things that you enjoy. In fact, you'll find out how much easier it is to hear him and connect with him when you do this. One of the things, like I said multiple times, I love to fly fish and I love to hunt. And so I could literally sit, when I was 16, I used to struggle with hunting because I just got bored like really fast. I have 3 kids now, and so I could sit under a tree for hours because it's just quiet. I'm like, man, this is God. And I connect with him out there. I bring my Bible out there. I pray to him. And it's funny how much easier it is for me to hear the Lord in this place. Like I said, I love to fly fish and just connecting with him while I'm not catching fish a lot of the times. When I was younger, when I was 16 years old and I first got saved, I would walk down the road. I lived in a small town called Woodland, Washington. It only has 4,000 people. It was this lumberjack town. To give you guys some context for what this town was really like is we do something called redneck bowling, which is where you'd go up on the logging roads and you'd see this big boulder on the side of the mountain and you'd push it down and see what kind of trees it took out. I connected with God doing redneck bowling. It was great. But I would walk down to the pasture right down from my house and watch the sunset over the mountains thinking about the beauty of my creator. See, you can find the beauty of God in a Texas sunset. You can find the beauty of God in a deer running through a field. You can find the beauty of God in the fresh snow hits the ground on a cold winter day. You can find the beauty of God in the wildflowers right next to your parking lot. You can find the beauty of God in a spring-fed creek. You can find the beauty of God in the stillness of a cool morning. You can find the beauty of God in the heights of a high altitude mountain where you can see for miles. You can find the beauty of God everywhere in his creation. He's beautiful and he is everywhere. Unfortunately, we have believed this religious lie that the only way to connect with God is in a church pew. And it's a beautiful way. I encountered the Lord during worship. But you're a surface level Christian if this is the only place where you encounter him. You're surface level. You think if I only talk to my wife for an hour and a half, 2 hours on a Sunday, we probably would all agree I don't have a healthy marriage if that's the truth. Do you have a healthy relationship with God? Do you talk to him outside of this place? Do you encounter him every single day? My opinion is that the reason why we don't do this is because we're bored and apathetic. I believe that we, as in the body of Christ, we need to be delivered from boredom and into awe, wonder, and fascination of the majesty of our Creator. We talk about deliverance a lot in churches like ours. Deliverance from addiction, deliverance from lust, deliverance from whatever. But I believe that we really need to get delivered from this bored, apathetic religious spirit that keeps us thinking that God doesn't want to connect with us while we're fishing and we can't see his beauty everywhere. This is why when you have a hard time looking at those lustful websites, You find more awe, wonder, and majesty in that because you're bored with God. If you're not in awe of God, you'll place your awe somewhere else. You'll place it somewhere else. So are you in awe of God? Isaiah chapter 53 verse 2, it says, for he grew up with him like a young plant, and like a root out of dry ground, he had no form or majesty that we should look at him. This is a prophecy of Jesus. And it says that no beauty that we should desire him. So Jesus comes as a man. It says there's no beauty that we should desire him. Well, what it's saying is there's nothing outside materialistic surface level that would draw you in. He didn't have some cool signage. He didn't have a fog machine. He didn't have lights. He didn't have keys following him, making him feel spiritual. There was nothing outside of him, but you actually had to discern and know who he really was to see his true beauty. This is why you have companies like Patagonia, REI, North Face, who are only focused on the outward beauty, but they cannot recognize the true beauty of the Creator who created those beautiful things. I'm all about the fog machines, the lights, the keys, the music. I'm cool with those things as long as they don't replace the beauty of God. Unfortunately, churches in America, we have used that as a replacement, trying to stir up people who are bored and apathetic. Well, maybe this will get them. I don't care about that. Pastor Alex, Pastor Brennan, they don't care about that. Because the only thing that sets you free isn't a fog machine. It's him. I want to be clear that I'm not against those things. I know I already said that. We're not the church that's going to judge everything else that other churches are doing. But what we're saying is we can all agree we live in an apathetic and a bored generation. This is what leads people into idolatry. Go to a Taylor Swift concert and tell me that people aren't worshiping her. Why are we more excited about celebrities and athletes and fog machines and lights than the beauty of God? Like I said, it's because we didn't discern and recognize how beautiful he really is. Band, you can come back up. My question for you guys this morning, what have you given your awe and wonder to? What have you given your awe and wonder to? You know you've given your awe and wonder to something else when it takes up your emotional space, when it takes up your brain space, when it takes up your attention, more than him. Some of you even might be bored right now. I'm sorry, I'm not that great of a communicator for you. But it's because you're bored and apathetic, and honestly, you might even be in a religious spirit. Because when I talk about Jesus, the one that I love, we were singing about that all this morning, and it's just like, man, it's just this beautiful songs this morning. Because he is the most beautiful man in the entire world. Men in this place, do you think he's beautiful? Have you ever articulated that out of your mouth? Women, are you obsessed with your outward beauty that you get so distracted by how you look today that you can't focus on the beauty of him? See, in Hosea chapter 2, we started in the scripture. It says, therefore, it's talking about the nation of Israel. I will allure her. I'll bring her into the wilderness, and there I'll speak tenderly to her. I'll give her her vineyards and make the valley of Achor a door of hope. And there she shall answer as in the days of her youth, as at the time when she came out of the land of Egypt. And in that day, declares the Lord, you'll call me husband and you'll no longer call me Baal. Other translations say, you'll call me husband and you'll no longer call me master. I love the way that's translated. You'll no longer call me master, but you'll call me husband, because the wilderness in this place actually wasn't the Pacific Northwest. It wasn't full of mountains. It wasn't full of streams and wildflowers. It was actually a really dry and desolate place. But it was still a place where they were separated from the distractions of the world, from the distractions of business, from the distractions of life, where it was only about them and God. And that's what I love about connecting with him in creation, is it's just me and him. And in this wilderness, They says they'll no longer call you master, but they'll call you husband. See, the place in the wilderness was a place for intimacy, where you're no longer calling God just your Lord, but you're calling him your husband. See, your spouse, for those of you who are married in this place, you are the most intimate with your spouse. There is nobody else that gets the same intimacy from you. There's things my wife know about me that no one else knows, and vice versa. I'm more intimate with her than anything or anybody. And this is the point of being in the wilderness, being in his creation. And the wilderness can be this symbol of trials and tribulations and going through hard things, but it's also a geographic place. Is the point of the wilderness, the point of his creation, is to bring you into a place where you're just madly in love with him, where you fall out of love with addiction, you fall out of love with everything else, and you're just madly in love with him. He's no longer just your Lord, he's no longer just your master, but he's your husband, and he's the one that you look to for everything. See, some of you in this place, you've lost your awe, wonder, and fascination of him because you've given it to other things. That's why I love being in creation, because it just reminds me of his beauty. I make a point, my pastor has told me, both my Pastor Landon and Pastor Heather at Mercy Culture Church says, Sean, you got to schedule time to get away, to go just be in the woods with him. They recognize that I need it. Because when I come back, I'm actually more refreshed in him and I'm more in love with him. I'm a better husband, I'm a better dad, I'm a better lover of God, just being in his creation. See, connecting with God in creation is beholding the beauty of our Creator. Can I have everybody stand to your feet? Connecting with God in creation is beholding the beauty of our Creator. Some of you in this place have lost your awe, wonder, and fascination of him. I believe that even connecting with God in creation, even if that's not your primary way, I believe that that's a way that you can actually regain your awe and wonder of him. I was at an encounter time at our private school, and I saw young people sitting down during worship, and I realized the phrase that came to me is they're bored. And it wasn't because God wasn't there, it was because that their attention had gone to other things. I was praying for you this morning, and I felt like the Lord said that some of you in this place are struggling encountering God. That you haven't got to the point where you've broken through and you've really encountered his presence. I believe that the Lord wants to bring us into a place this morning of breakthrough. A word that I submitted to our youth group, our student ministries this year, was that they would have the greatest daily encounters they've ever had this year. And as I was praying for you guys, I felt the same thing, that the Lord wants to invite you into the greatest daily encounters you've ever had.